Self-isolation, social distancing, herd immunity, working from home, social bubbles. These phrases have all become synonymous with 2020 as we navigate the various relationships in our lives and how we can look after them even at a distance. People have rekindled their long-lost hobbies and they've found newfangled ones too, from music to DIY to making poetry. What's been more important than ever before is community, which can mean different things to different people, from our families, friends and work colleagues, to the collectives that we belong to. We're all in this together is a phrase that we've heard many times before, but this actually does ring true both on a local and global scale for the first time this century. I'm Karishma Kusurkar.
And I'm Graeme Watson.
And welcome to The World Turned Upside Down, a 4-part audio documentary sharing stories of how the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic has impacted upon the lives and livelihoods of people working in the creative industries in Northern Ireland.
In this episode, we look at how different communities have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic.
We'll be sharing the stories of architect Aisling Rusk of Studio Ither, videographer Ryan Ward of Take Two Studio, director and filmmaker David Moody, and Nisha Tandon, founder of multicultural arts organisation Arts Ecta. The founder of architectural practice Studio Ither, Aisling Rusk, is a woman of many talents. Alongside her own business, she leads the RSUA's Women in Architecture NI Collective and is a mother to 2 young children. Her work spans physical buildings, boundary building and community building. And during lockdown, she has been working from home as well as balancing teaching her children and connecting with architects all over the world. As an ever-resourceful individual and a Wonder Woman, she has managed to write 100 or so poems throughout lockdown, as well as run events and start a social media channel championing women in architecture. We were curious to find out her thoughts on the spaces that we live in and work in, as our environments have never been as important as they are right now.
Personally, I'm never going back. I'm not going back to the way it was on so many levels, environmentally, economically, personally, the pace at which I was living my life. I feel very strongly that this 2020, this pandemic, this lockdown has been a punctuation mark, a pause, an opportunity to say, let's do things differently. And now as we emerge from it, my focus has really been on, well, what does that mean? What does that mean to me? What does that mean spatially? How are we thinking about all of those things differently? And what am I not going to keep doing that I was doing before? So in terms of how this changes our use of space, I think the workspace is going to be radically transformed. And I don't think any employer who in the past said flexible working from home wasn't an option can do that anymore, because we've proven that you can do all manner of work from home. So I think we'll see more hot desking, reduced office sizes, flexible spaces, and people spending more time working at home. And in terms of the impact then on home spaces, for sure, you would be wise to be thinking about having spaces. They don't have to be big, but just dedicated spaces, even a desk, a niche, a nook in your home that allows you to work and leave your work set up and not have to clear it off the dining table when it's time to eat.
How do you get the cup into...
You use the little funnel will I show you?
What funnel?
I think it's been really hard for children. I think they've missed a lot, and it's hard for them to understand. It's hard for us to explain to them what's going on. And so they're missing that social interaction with their friends, the space to have their own wee lives outside of the household, and the fun of learning and growing and just playing in the park, all of the things that kids don't get to do.
This is how we've decided to take our daily exercise today. It's going to be a long walk around the block.
The thing that really inspired me on my street in Ballyhackamore was that somebody on one of the trees on the avenue started putting little he put a couple of little doors and windows to make it a fairy tree before lockdown, but he really went to town on it in lockdown because he had more time. We would go there almost daily on a pilgrimage to see what was new on the fairy tree. So more and more windows and doors, a school, a castle, a little tree house with a rope ladder, and then kids started dropping off stones they'd painted, their own little figurines and things. So every time you go to it, there's something new, which is just a lovely way to capture the imagination of kids at a time like this. My kids are convinced real fairies live in there, but only come out at night time. The things that have really helped us in lockdown as a family have firstly been music. My husband was doing singing lessons before lockdown, and my eldest son was doing jam at Queen's, which is Junior Academy of Music, on a Saturday morning, and both of those moved online during lockdown, which meant that my daughter got to just sit in. She was only 3 then 4, but got to just witness his Finian singing as well. So there's been a lot of singing in the house, and I think that's really good for health. And I dusted off my guitar and played a little bit too, which was lovely. Secondly, drawing. We, with the Women in Architecture group, did firstly, it was just a few of us who were friends who had these drawing sessions on a Saturday night where we'd be in our own house and drink a glass of wine and draw something and chat. And then we formalised it. We were invited to host a Lean In event with the Women in Architecture UK group. And so we did a Zoom evening where people could come along, and either we provided a drawing that people could colour in if they just didn't want to have the pressure of drawing something, or invited them to draw a building they'd like to escape to during lockdown, and listen to short presentations by architects who are also artists and draw at the same time, which was just, and bring their own drink, of course, in their home. So it was a great success, just any creative outlet. And the last thing that I've been doing on a personal level as a creative outlet is writing poems. I started at the very beginning of lockdown to write a daily poem, and I have never written poems in my life. I'm not a writer, not a poet, but I found it a really, really cathartic process, a really good outlet for processing what was going on every day in my personal life, but also in the world, in politics, and just things that were happening, funny everyday occurrences and ideas that I was having. And so I've been really grateful for that. I've stopped doing it now as slightly emerged out of lockdown, but I wrote over 100 poems, doing it every day. And that was just a useful tool. If you like, I was going to share one with you. Okay. It was just one around the thinking about, like I said, a lot of things are both good and bad about the lockdown this year. What good things have come from it, and a lot of difficult things. And this was an idea around the buildings, the projects we've had that have been interrupted by coronavirus in different ways, been put on hold, including my own. And the idea of building a brick or a found object or stone from the site into the project somewhere that you'll see it as a kind of memorial to this year. So I'll have a go here. This is called Brick in the Wall, Remembering 2020. From the site before, a brick or stone, upright, an unmarked headstone to the huge collective loss of COVID-19. A punctuation mark in these works, and also across the whole wide world, lost souls, lost plans, lost livelihoods, while the earth kept on spinning. Let that brick be a tactile reminder of what passed, evoking the before and the after. As we touch its rough texture and the smooth of our finished wall, let it remind us to hold on to the good which can emerge in the space of a pause, never the same again.
One of the biggest challenges of working remotely has been networking and connecting with colleagues, and doing so in a non-sterile environment. But Aisling has found a way around this during lockdown.
And the other amazing thing about this lockdown has been the way it's opened up lots of events and spaces. So doing things I've attended Women in Architecture UK events that would otherwise have been in London, and I would not have flown to London for them. And RIAI down in the Republic of Ireland, Women in Architecture networking events that would otherwise have been possibly in Dublin, although the one that I attended was actually, it was a conversation between 5 or 6 female architects from Ireland working in practices all over the world, in Berlin, in New Zealand, in New York, in London. And that wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for the way in which the digital world has opened up this year. And one of the other things, my husband and I have always wanted to go to the Hay Festival and never managed. And since having kids, I suppose we're thinking it's going to be a long time before we actually ever get to one of those. But this year they put that all online, and we attended probably half a dozen talks from our living room when the kids were in bed, listening to incredible speakers. So that, like, I think that's amazing, and I really hope that openness, that digital openness, stays long past 2020. I wonder if people who potentially for different reasons like disabilities felt were isolated before this lockdown have actually found certain parts of that isolation easier, because it's been so easy to get food delivered. You know, local businesses have gone all out with their wonderful offerings, deliveries, doing shopping for you, and then all of the events you can attend, and the fact that everybody from, you know, grandparents to young kids have become proficient at Zoom, which I hadn't even heard of. I think we have to be mindful that it's probably not the same for everyone, you know, and I think as much as I might at times when things are challenging with the kids and everything else, have thought, oh, imagine being furloughed. I think the reality of being furloughed for anyone that is pretty worrying, because you don't know what's going to happen, and does that mean you're first out the door if there has to be a reduction in numbers? And so there's been, I think if you'd been furloughed and you weren't busy in your job, you know, it might be harder to attend events. And, you know, so for some people, I think it's possible that this has been a harder time to have a strong network and grow your network. And I also think that there's still something you can't replicate online. There's something you can't really beat being face to face in the conversations you have. And the fact that, isn't it, one of the books we're reading saying that only 10% of interaction is verbal, and the rest of it is body language and all of that, which you just don't really get in the same way over a computer.
Kilkeel is an amazing place. Kilkeel is the centre of the universe.
Ryan Ward is one half of the small team that runs video production company Take Two Studios, based in the small, picturesque coastal town of Kilkeel. In the shadow of the Mourne Mountains, Kilkeel isn't the most obvious place for a creative hub.
I was brought up in Kilkeel, born and raised, and it probably doesn't get the best reputation, but I do honestly believe that it is one of the most beautiful parts of the country. The town itself may be a little dilapidated in places, but the area itself of Mourne is definitely, whenever you drive in, you see the sign, there's an area of outstanding natural beauty. That's definitely true. Probably is a little bit underdeveloped, and but at the same time, we have great industry down here. I'm not sure if I got the statistic right, but it's either 2/3 or 3/4 of the world's airplane seats are built in Kilkeel. We also have quite a lot of tradesmen and women, so a lot of self-employment in Kilkeel, and as well as that, there's a growing creative hub.
A small town with big dreams indeed, while being a creative based in Kilkeel often requires a lot of travel for significant business. Perhaps owing to an older tradition and culture of self-employment in the community, there is an upside.
To be honest, for a lot of our work, quite a bit of it would not be local. quite some of it is, but there's a lot of smaller companies in Kilkeel who aren't either willing or able to put budgets towards marketing campaigns and whatnot. And you're always going to be competing against what we would see as the bigger companies in Belfast. So it can be a struggle that way, but at the same time, there definitely is a community in Kilkeel of business owners who are willing to help each other out, and we will try and sort of spread the workload locally. There is that support, and that support's been great for us.
Having just been named Northern Ireland Wedding Videographer of the Year, 2020 started off well for Ryan. Still a young company, Ryan explains that his business began after a chance request from a friend when he was a film studies undergraduate.
It was me and another guy, Stephen Patterson. He actually works full time now in Collins Aerospace. But at the start, I was in university and he was working, and actually two friends of ours asked us to record their wedding, and we'd never lifted a camera before in our lives between the two of us. So that's how it started for us. We did the wedding and we got a loan of a friend's camera, and another friend gave us a GoPro, and we recorded someone's wedding on a borrowed camera, a borrowed GoPro, and two iPhones. And then from there we thought, oh, this is quite fun. I think we should do this full time.
The business was started just before Ryan graduated, but working from home, he soon realised that this wasn't necessarily all that it was cracked up to be.
I worked from home for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I couldn't get anything done. There was always, oh, would you run to the shop and get the whatever? And I have a prescription in the chemist. Would you go get it for me? So I ended up, it just wasn't working out, and I knew Maid and Morn had opened, and so we went and had the conversation with Jenna, the owner.
Located on Greencastle Street in the town, Maid and Morn is a social enterprise and shared workspace for makers, artists and creative entrepreneurs living in the area. This offered Ryan a stimulating home from home for his new business.
They have networking events, there's connections, there's 10 or 12 different residents, there's 60 or 70 different makers. So from a start, you're given a big base of people who you can meet straight away and connect with. And even if you're not necessarily good at networking, you sort of don't need to be, because they're sort of people that you vaguely know anyway, because it's such a small local community. So it has definitely been invaluable for us.
With so much of Ryan's business focused around the wedding industry, when lockdown restrictions on social gatherings hit, they anticipated quickly what was about to happen.
Yeah, well, we sort of assumed that at the start, if everything's going to be locked down, weddings are going to have to stop, because weddings are groups of 130 more or less people. And whenever churches closed, we knew that that was 100% definitely it. It was a bit annoying for us, because at the start of the year, as I said before, we had won the award, and since that happened, my phone didn't stop for about 6 weeks, and we were on for our best year so far, by a considerable amount, and we were pretty much booked out for this year, and it went from booked out, or almost booked out, to I think we'll have a maximum of 6 weddings this year. So it was a big blow to us, and we had a few other projects, really interesting projects in the pipeline.
And despite being forced back to working from home, the community around Maid and Morn proved, as you'd expect, creative.
During the lockdown, Maid and Morn thought of some inventive ways and how to keep me busy. So I'd be friendly with Jenna, and during lockdown, Maid and Morn actually decided to release a book. Well, it started out with postcard. So the idea was there's a few of the staff who are very good writers, and they wanted to figure a way to engage with the community even whenever they couldn't meet the community. So the idea was, if kids would draw a picture of anything they liked, Maid and Morn would take the picture, and the two authors would write a story associated with the picture. And they were expecting maybe 5-10 stories, and I think we ended up with about 45 stories, something like that. And the small postcard stories turned into 6 pages of story, and they just let the creative juices flow. And we decided to publish a book, turn it into a book called Once Upon a Lockdown. One of the local kids did all the artwork for the front, and so I spent a few weeks putting it together. The community has been very good with their engagement with the project. It's been good fun, and I think the kids have enjoyed it, and I know the two authors have been very excited about it.
A strong sense of solidarity among creatives and other businesses also emerged.
I had a few messages: how are you doing? Are things okay? If there's anything I can do to help, just drop me a message. I'm out of work at the minute. I know you are too. If you can think of any way that we can both keep each other busy, drop me a message. We'd love to work with you.
For Ryan, this may partly reflect the community spirit of the town itself, but the role of Maid and Morn has been crucial.
Whenever you're in the community itself, that there is generally a real sense of togetherness and trying to help each other and support each other. Yeah, but I think the one thing that has changed that is, I have to say, it sounds like an advertisement for Maid and Morn, but it definitely has helped, and they do have regular community meetings and business meetings, or they did before lockdown, and that's given everybody the opportunity to know each other a little bit more.
And as for his own business, when does he think normality may resume?
I think it's hard to predict. It really all depends on whether there is going to be this second wave, as they've coined it. So in the short term, as in August, early September, I think it's looking okay. But then once the winter comes and things change, it just becomes totally unpredictable again. But at the same time, at the end of the day, people are still going to get married down the line. It's not as though it's an industry that's going to disappear altogether. It just might take a little bit of time.
How the next few months and years will shape up for so many creatives is deeply uncertain. But despite how challenging the future might be, having a close community can provide an important support for enduring resilience.
I think for a lot of people it has been difficult. I haven't heard of too many people having to go out of business, but I think it will take quite a few people a bit of time to recover. But I think we will get there. Because we are such a small knit community, and we do help each other out, and we do send work each other's way whenever we can. But I think when we all pull together, it will be fine. Some people may not come out of it terribly well, but I think on the whole, the majority, I think we will all be okay. There's always a, I'm sure there's an analogy or an idiom or something about shining light at the end of the tunnel or something. I felt myself building there to quite a crescendo, and then I just flopped.
Filmmaker David Moody creates short films for advertising and music, as well as working on productions, including recently a high-end television drama. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the film and television industry was severely disrupted. Within the creative industries, film and television are both hugely collaborative, people-driven subsectors with cast and crew across many departments. This sector has grown vastly in recent years, and many of those working in the sector are freelance creatives. With this more insecure way of working, this time has been particularly difficult to navigate for them. Sets and productions have had to dramatically change, with stringent social distancing measures and a pared back crew amongst the new ways of working, which in turn has caused many people to lose work. Despite all these new challenges, the film sector has been persevering, and organisations, particularly NI Screen, have been supporting new productions and growth even during this time.
When I believe it was kind of beginning of March, I was working on a high-end TV production in Belfast as a shadow director. So my role was essentially to assist the director from a creative perspective. I was also to do some second unit work, so capturing any shots that the director was unable to capture during their days. I would go out and film those. When it started to kind of happen, everyone kind of felt that little bit of nervousness. We were essentially a week away from starting our block, which was 2 episodes of this production. So we had done 7 weeks of pre-production of prep. And as you all know, it all happened very quickly. So there wasn't even much time to kind of assess what was happening. You know, it was kind of that period of this thing exists, coronavirus at the time, and we got shut down very quickly. So there wasn't even any time to kind of say, well, what is this? What's going to happen? And I suppose I always had the understanding that when this ended, that the production would kick off again, and that we'd restart on. And unfortunately, that hasn't happened. You know, as a shadow director, you are essentially superfluous to the production to a certain extent, obviously. So trying to reduce numbers on set in the production offices. I unfortunately was one of the people that was stepped off the production, as many people were. So that has been a difficult thing to accept, in that it was a great opportunity. I was learning so much, and unfortunately that's ended. It's brutal, but I suppose it's an industry of no's, you know, filmmaking and the creative industries in general. It's an industry of no's, and making that part of your job description, I think, is something very important, you know, knowing that you have to accept the no's. And another thing is that, you know, it's not anything to do with my creativity. It's nothing to do with me personally. It's literally this thing that has happened that no one has any control of. So I'm very understanding of it. And, you know, it's also really important to put everything into perspective and say how lucky I have been and I am at the moment, and understanding that a lot of other people are in a lot worse situations.
Ian, those trucks from O'Brien's are delayed. Are you okay to stay late?
Paul, I can't tonight, mate.
There's no one else here.
I need to be away on time. Can I not come back later?
You'll be away by 6.
That's too late.
Look, I know at least 10 other guys would happily take this job.
I know, but I just need...
You need to be here until that delivery is done.
David recently released a film during lockdown, which has been another changed experience of 2020, of an audience getting a first look at a new film online rather than in the cinema. We asked him about his experience of releasing work during this turbulent and shifting time, and whether it has been effective.
I have just finished my 4th short film. It's called The Appointment. I say just finished, but you know, we would have finished filming this time last year, but it really would have only started in the festival circuit at the beginning of this year. I mean, the 2 festivals that have already happened that we've been in, Belfast Film Festival, which is BAFTA accredited, and the Galway Film Festival, which is Academy accredited, they both went online. The Belfast Film Festival happened in April, I believe, so at the very beginning of lockdown, and the Galway Film Festival happened in July. Now, Galway, in terms of numbers, attendance, films, would be a much larger festival, but obviously Belfast is important for us as a hometown festival. And it's only this year that it got BAFTA accreditation for a short film, which essentially means if you get a number of these BAFTA accredited film festivals, if you're entered into a number of them and you succeed, then you can become eligible to win the BAFTA. So it's important to kind of get into certain festivals with this accreditation. So Belfast and Galway both went online, and Belfast held a kind of free screening as such. So you just applied, I believe, for a ticket online, and you could watch the films for a 24-hour period for free. And actually, I got a huge amount of feedback and responses from people, and a lot of really nice comments and a lot of interesting tweets and direct messages and emails, which are really obviously nice to hear, and also connections, which are really important, you know. So leading up to the Galway Film Festival, we'd kind of expected this to be, you know, that times 5 or that times 10 in terms of the communication, but it was far less. So Galway decided to take an approach of having to purchase a ticket. And again, it's just a different approach, but it obviously means that people need to make a financial commitment to go online, purchase the ticket and watch. So 2 different strategies. And of course, you know, you have to understand these festivals cost money to run. For whatever way that kind of worked out, we got far less feedback after Galway, which was very surprising because it is a much bigger festival in terms of numbers usually. So a bit disappointing, but great to be involved in the festival. And as I said, yeah, we just found out this weekend that we got into another big festival. A big part of the film festival is going to the festival, and especially Irish festivals. Galway is one of the biggest Irish festivals. You make a lot of connections there, and not being able to do that was a little bit disappointing this year. But I know that a lot of feature films, obviously because cinemas weren't open for quite some time, they just didn't release. And then obviously the big one now is Christopher Nolan's Tenet film that's being released, and that's kind of shaken up a few people in terms of there is I suppose a social responsibility of releasing such a huge film that will attract a lot of people that will go to the cinema. So it's an interesting one because, you know, you're asking people to go to the cinema and sit next to other people and potentially, you know, spread the virus further. So I don't really know what the strategy is beyond the fact that during a large amount of time of the pandemic, cinemas just weren't open, so you couldn't actually go to the cinema. And it's interesting to see how that's kind of changing now. And like I said, you know, with the release of some of these bigger films, the commentary on the decisions, you know, so people saying, well, you made a decision to release this film. Now, are you going to accept the responsibility of potentially increasing this pandemic in terms of numbers or what? So it's scary, actually, you know.
Despite all of the challenges, David seems to be incredibly resilient and has put into place techniques to help him get through the pandemic and beyond.
For the first time, I did 8 sessions over 8 weeks with a creative coach, who I was put in contact with a very good friend of mine. And essentially what I worked on with the creative coach was just kind of confidence and empowerment when it comes to my creative work. You know, those 8 weeks were incredible for me. I learned so much. I developed so much as a creative person, and I was able to develop so many kind of the coping mechanisms that I think are necessary and I know will help me moving forward. I discussed briefly, you know, making no a part of your job description, and that's a thing that I'd worked on, you know, accepting that you will get all these no's and how to deal with that kind of stuff, you know. So that was incredible for me. Those 8 weeks were so powerful, and it's something that, you know, I can definitely take away from the lockdown, you know. I always like reflect on other creatives like musicians or like designers that can, and again, not to detract from people's work, but that can sit down with a guitar and, you know, write a song and sing it and essentially record it on your laptop if that's what you want. And of course you can do a certain amount of filmmaking like that. You know, I could, you know, use my phone and film myself here, but that isn't what I want to make. And the things that I want to make, you know, I can easily say minimum 15 to 20 crew, absolutely minimum. That's the amount of people I need, let alone actors, you know. Obviously I have writing, which is something I can do, but when you write a script, you know, it's just a bit of paper. It's worthless unless you can put that on the screen, you know, and to do that you need the people. So it's a strange one, and it's massively collaborative, and that's also amazing. It's incredible when you do get to work with all the different people doing all their different roles, you know.
The Belfast Mela is one of the highlights of Northern Ireland's summer calendar. Taking place each year for 2 days at the end of August, the Belfast Mela showcases and celebrates the arts, music, food and culture of Northern Ireland's minority ethnic communities. Nisha Tandon is the Chief Executive of Arts Acta, the cultural organisation which presents the Mela Spectacular each year. But while this annual event might be the most visible aspect of their work, Arts Acta delivers its mission of intercultural engagement throughout the year.
Basically, our everyday work is reaching out to the communities and giving them the platform and learning about minority ethnic communities through medium of arts. But on top of that, we also empower the minority ethnic artists and give them their personal development, teaching, training, and employment after that. And also do quite a lot of festivals and community events. Our biggest and our 75% of our programming is always in schools. I think it has to be embedded in the education. So that's how we sort of, relate to our audiences and bringing our work to them.
Arts Acta was founded in 2006 by Nisha, herself a trained dancer from childhood.
And I had done my National School of Drama and I have a dance background. Dance is a big thing in India, which I think quite a lot, dance and music and theatre are the three big things in India, which quite a lot of children are maybe made to go and learn by their parents, because they think that it helps with their curriculum, it helps with their upbringing, it helps with their development. So for that reason, it has been very, very important for my parents to give me that background.
Arriving to live in a troubled Belfast in the 1970s, it wasn't easy to find an avenue for pursuing her dancing career.
So obviously, to survive in the world, you have to work. And I was very lucky in the sense that I arrived in August, went and took my CVs, couple of places, was not very successful. Then I thought, right, okay, let's start something different. So I just got an ordinary job working in a florist and all that sort of stuff. But from there, I think the more people I met, the more I spoke about my identity and my culture. And from there, it just went that by accident, I met one of the school teachers and she decided that, why don't you just come and give a little cultural talk to a women's group? And I said, right, no problem. So I just went and did that. And from there, the journey never sort of, I never looked back. Now, I did do many other things. I had loads of different careers. I was the first Asian woman who had the TV program. I was the first Asian woman who had the school of cookery. I was the first Asian woman who went and taught cookery in different colleges and home economics classes and things like that. But, in all those sort of things, I was not getting the satisfaction of my background, which I had was my theatre background and dance background.
Eventually, an opportunity to teach dance classes at Belfast's Crescent Arts Centre proved to be a hit with the public, putting Nisha back in touch with her roots. In the late 1990s, with Northern Ireland's peace process underway, a new influx of migrants from EU countries, India, Africa, the Philippines and elsewhere had begun. With the old tensions between Protestants and Catholics diminishing, new racial tensions were beginning to emerge, with Belfast even being dubbed the race-hate capital of Europe. It was from reflecting on her own experiences of moving to Northern Ireland during this period that the idea of Arts Acta was born.
And in that, I just thought that I don't want the people who are coming here from different parts of world and go, especially the women, going through the same as what journey I have gone through, and how can I support them? So this idea twinkled in my head that I think I need to start an organization which will be supporting the minority ethnic artists and giving them that training and development So that's how in 2006 Art Sector started in my own home, up in my bedroom. And from there, just the journey just began with £1,500 in my pocket, and it just sort of began.
With Arts Acta entering its 14th year, Nisha says that the pandemic has interrupted the organisation at its peak.
We were just looking forward to it because first time ever we got from Belfast City Council our Imagine funding, which has brought us that you will be working for 4 years and developing it into a proper international type of festival. And we were looking forward to it, and we did a lot of hard work. And in June, then we decided that we are going to go virtual.
For the first time in its history, the Mela could be enjoyed from the comfort of people's homes.
From 24th right up till 30th, there's going to be a huge big map of Botanic Gardens, which will be created. You will be actually in the site itself, and click the button and you will be on the world stage. If you want to go into the health zone, you will click the button and there will be a whole lot of activities which will be going on. People want to do cultural activities. Cultureland is going to be there. You want to do tea tasting, we will be doing that. Cookery demonstrations. The only thing is that we will not be physically present there.
So what's it been like turning a physical festival into a digital one?
The digital journey has been useful in some areas, but it has been challenging for our participants. Because first of all, there's a whole need of training, because not everybody knows how to use digital platforms. Not many people can be reached out in the rural areas, and young people, whenever they're working, they're at home, and to get them to do some activities in our working time, it is not happening. So you have to just make your programs totally different. For me, it has been challenging as well, because I like to go and meet and interact and give them that experience of getting their hands dirty, basically, and that experience has not been there. And for the virtual, I think too much screen time sometimes is not feasible or advisable. So we had to learn within the organization as well, how to use those platforms. So there has been a challenging journey, but we had to also change quite quickly our way of working.
The process of transformation inspired some other ideas too.
And then I thought, okay, how can I keep this memento of learning going? So I started to do the delivery packs of arts and crafts and culture. So we made a cultural box. In that, we had 4 cultures where the children from 3 to 11 could learn about India, China, Africa, Poland, do their activities, and the mums could do the recipes and all that sort of. So we made a box, and then the delivery service started. So we've been delivering all over Northern Ireland those cultural boxes.
As the main arts organisation offering a platform for Northern Ireland's minority ethnic communities, how have creatives and artists from these been affected by the pandemic?
The arts has absolutely gone to zero where minority ethnic communities are concerned, because minority ethnic artists were working with us to go out, do outreach, do events, and do all those sort of, and anybody who was doing their own social enterprise through medium of events and doing gigs and in the hotels or restaurants or into another music or dance platforms, that has totally stopped. There has been no support as such, particularly for the minority ethnic artists. And I feel that there are many, the arts professional subgroups and arts groups or arts consortiums which have been set up in Belfast City Council, but none of them, not even one single stakeholder platforms have asked minority ethnic communities to sit in it.
Northern Ireland's creatives from minority ethnic communities have often struggled to be heard and seen in normal times. While all arts workers, organisations and venues face difficult times ahead, the role of organisations such as Arts ECTA in promoting, showcasing and employing creative artists from more diverse cultural backgrounds deserves to be recognised and supported more than ever.
That arts, culture and heritage, the amount of impact it leaves on people's social, mental and healthy lives is phenomenal. And but we are not being given that platform. Arts Sector is an important organization where the communities are concerned, because yes, that's my passion, because communities is the one who has made me what I am today. You know, if I wasn't out in those communities, whether it is from West Belfast, whether it is from North or East or South, if I wasn't working with those communities, we would have not been able to get back from what we are getting back from them. So I think it is two-way journey. Yes, we are a household name, but it has, we have worked very hard to get those, and the communities do watch us, and it is because we like to go and work with our communities and we like to bring what we do. And it's not for Arts Sector just a tick box exercise. It is for Arts Sector because we are passionate for the people who are we working with, and that is the BAME community. You know, it is very, very important for them to be given that platform, because tomorrow they are your future.
In this episode, we looked at community and how people have supported each other through the challenges and changes of 2020. Those working in the creative sector have experienced issues unique to their disciplines in practical terms, such as financial support, ability to network, and launching new projects to their audiences. They've also taken on unique ways of reaching out to others in their sector, such as online drawing sessions, supporting minority creative entrepreneurs, and collaborating on new creative projects. In the second half of this audio series, we'll look at how people have been able to stay connected and sane whilst running their businesses during a global pandemic.
The World Turned Upside Down was supported by Future Screens NI, NI Screen and Ulster University, and was recorded lockdown style, remotely. Project management and additional support was from Blick Shared Studios. The podcast was produced, written, recorded and edited by Karishma, Kusurkar and Graeme Watson. Academic research supporting the project is from Dr. Brian Dixon at Ulster University. And thanks to all the guests in this episode: Aisling Rusk, Ryan Ward, Brian Moody and Nisha Tandon. Check out the show notes to find out more about them. The World Turned Upside Down is a small town, big dreams production.